What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the Dread Pirate Dr. Disaster, and the Access Media has been making excuses for the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the dwindling interest in the comic books and all the other Marvel properties. They've been making excuses for that for the past few years. They claim that Marvel burnout has occurred, but if that's the case, then I have to ask the obvious question: how do you all explain Marvel Rivals, which has absolutely dominated video games in this past week?
What the hell was that?
That was the sound of Marvel Rivals absolutely kicking the door down and smashing its competition as it barrels its way up to over 400,000 players daily on Steam alone at its peak concurrent time. The best part of this game's success, though, is how it absolutely dismantles the argument being made by the media trying to protect their Disney darlings, as they claim that people are just burned out on Marvel. The so-called game journalists finally posted enough reviews on Metacritic to give Marvel Rivals an actual score. As you can see here, there are 7 reviews in total, but 4 was enough. The thing is, these journalists simultaneously do not want to promote the game by talking about it, and I also believe they just hate to admit that the game exists because it blows up their narrative. This article here from CBR just dropped, contemplating the drop-off of Marvel video games recently, as if they've completely forgotten or refused to acknowledge that Marvel Rivals just came out.
Are you running a high fever, man?
The thing is, Marvel Rivals is succeeding because it features characters that people love from the franchise in a way that's respectful to them. It doesn't make them ugly, it doesn't gender swap or race swap or try to turn any of them into LGBT. NetEase just made a game with Marvel characters. Now compare this to the Marvel Wolverine game that's supposed to be coming out in the next year or so. This is what Logan looks like in that game, a scrawny little fella who looks like a kid in a Halloween costume. And this is what Jean Grey looks like.
You're ugly!
Those characters are just plain nasty. Nobody wants to play as those androgynous lumps of garbage. Now compare that to what Wolverine looks like in Marvel Rivals, and you'll see there is simply no comparison. And the female characters, which that doesn't include Jean Grey in Marvel Rivals, at least not currently, so there isn't a direct one-for-one comparison, but the female characters in Rivals look way more appealing. So yeah, for whatever reason, most artists and filmmakers and everyone else who tackles Marvel these days are just obsessed with either uglifying the product or altering it so that what you see on screen isn't what you grew up loving. And yet these morons in the media are left desperately scratching for explanations as to Marvel's slow descent from the top of the heap, while Marvel Rivals just pushed Overwatch 2 down to its lowest player count ever, showcasing the power that this franchise still commands as long as you respect it.
What exactly is it that they do?
Kick names, take ass.
Yeah, that's right. Alright, so like I showed you before, the differences in the Wolverine design in Marvel Rivals, which is admittedly not my personal favorite with the coat there. I prefer his classic outfit, which is available if you want to buy it, but the basic design between Rivals and the Marvel Wolverine game coming out in the next year or so is like night and day. As X-Account Learning the Law writes here, Logan from the upcoming Sweet Baby Inc. Wolverine game by Insomniac Games, known for the recent Spider-Man 2, made for modern audiences. Compared to Wolverine from Marvel Rivals, developed by a Chinese studio, it's literally soy versus testosterone. And that encapsulates everything that's wrong with the way the West has approached Marvel for a while now. They are so committed to trying to show all of us that there's no difference between men and women, that they are making manly chicks with square jaws in these games and movies, and scrawny versions of male characters who are supposed to be shredded, like what they've done with Wolverine. This is the sort of shit that Sweet Baby and people who think like them have been responsible for in the industry for a while now. But the access media is absolutely dripping with desperation as they try to explain why people are tuning out on Marvel shows and video games and all that. This article I showed before from CBR.com reads like a preemptive obituary. They're priming us for games like the Insomniac Wolverine game to fail, which they even mention Wolverine in the article, by the way, but they're priming us to expect failure by explaining that the same thing they believe is happening to the movies and TV shows, the so-called Marvel burnout, they think it's happening with the video games. What they fail to understand, or really, they just fail to admit, is that Marvel has been undergoing a serious decline in quality for a while now. They talk about the Square Enix Avengers game in this article that released about 4 years ago now, and how that game failed miserably, and they want to claim that it too was a victim of Marvel's oversaturation, but they refuse to admit it was a clunky, bad, live service piece of shit that failed, once again, for quality issues. It's the same way the movies are failing because the quality of character has gone down drastically that we see on the screen. Just think, when the movies from Marvel first started coming out, we got characters like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the Hulk, Hawkeye, Black Widow. These days, they are scraping the bottom of the barrel for obscure characters we don't like, and they are trying to push race and gender-swapped versions of characters that we do like onto the masses. You can tell by the state of the writing in the movies that they are both suffering from a lack of original ideas and they are suffering from a commitment to hiding behind the immutable characteristics of the characters on screen, using them as shields to protect them from criticism and fool people to come and watch their shit. The problem with constantly going on and on about how they've got the first woman superhero, the first black hero, the first Chinese hero. The problem is you eventually run out of firsts, and this gimmick has really bad diminishing returns. And that's where they're at now. They've sacrificed the story of the MCU at the altar of making a quick buck by pushing identity politics. And now the woke locusts have moved on to other things. Meanwhile, a Chinese company like NetEase swoops in with the Marvel property and destroys the rest of the industry by putting versions of the characters on the screen that are simply reminiscent of what fans always used to love when they saw Marvel characters. There isn't really even a story or anything like that to Rivals. It's just a silly game where you fight other Marvel characters. It's fun and it's visually appealing, and that is all it took to bring gamers in. Rivals stands as a testament to the power that Marvel still commands as a franchise. So yes, I agree with this article from CBR that the typical Marvel games are quite likely to flop. And yes, this particular brand of Marvel has caused burnout among fans, but Marvel Rivals, which they conveniently don't even mention in this article, which came out only days after this game's major release, but Marvel Rivals has been extremely popular. Naturally, people will point out that Marvel Rivals is free to play, as if that's some kind of evidence that the game isn't successful. But what they fail to understand, or just really acknowledge, they understand, they just don't want to admit, that oftentimes these free-to-play games make more money than traditional titles, because if they are popular enough, and it looks like this game is dwarfing the likes of Overwatch, but if they're popular enough, then the whales for these types of games will swoop in and buy up all the costumes and spend a shitload of money so they can flex on the people that they're playing with. But I'm going to leave it there. Drop some mockery of the Access media and their stupid narrative into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.